Joe Rogan just turned on Trump, and he did it in front of Congress. His takedown of Trump's deportation plan left even MAGA loyalists speechless. Let's unravel the chaos step by step. It all started with this.
Over the weekend, President Trump said that he would be willing to have U.S. citizens deported to El Salvador with the cooperation of President Bukele. How would that work legally, and how many people would potentially be available for that operation?
So the president has discussed this idea quite a few times publicly. He's also discussed it privately. You're referring to the president's idea for American citizens to potentially be deported. These would be heinous, violent criminals who have broken our nation's laws repeatedly, and these are violent repeat offenders in American streets. The president has said if it's legal, right, if there is a legal pathway to do that. He's not sure. We are not sure if there is. It's an idea that he has simply floated and has discussed very publicly as in the effort of transparency.
Let's break this down. Trump wants to deport U.S. citizens, actual Americans, to El Salvador because he thinks, what? That citizenship is just a mood? This is not just a bad idea. It's cartoonishly unconstitutional. Like, someone give this man a middle school civics book level bad. The fact that Trump, a guy with more indictments than successful marriages, thinks he's the one who gets to decide who belongs in the country. That's not law and order. That's just delusion with a spray tan. And the reason this got so much blowback, even from the usual MAGA enablers, it's because this is the stuff authoritarian regimes dream of. It's about creating fear. It's about silencing dissent. Trump is basically saying, mess with me, I'll ship you out, even if you're a US citizen. But it gets even worse, because this mess made its way all the way to Congress, and the roasting started with a name you need to know, Robert Garcia.
He has sent them instead to a brutal foreign prison with no oversight that could happen to anyone. And we also know now that US citizens are being deported with no due process. Now, we heard earlier from my colleague, Representative Magaziner, and others about Andrea Hernandez. Mr. Romero was a gay designer and hairdresser who was falsely accused of gang affiliations because of simple tattoos that he had. He has no criminal record, is from a community that celebrates the King's Festival, which is why he had a crown tattoo, and now he's in danger. And even though he passed a credible fear interview, he's being held in horrific conditions. And let's remember, he actually went to his appointment he was given by our own government, showed up to the appointment, and then was deported with no due process. So he's doing what we've asked him to do, and then being sent to an El Salvador prison, and no one's heard from him now for over a few weeks. We know that Donald Trump has no credible evidence that he was involved in any sort of gang activity, and instead is violating his rights of due process, of which every person in this country has. Now, a lot of us, myself included, weren't born into the protections that all citizens have. I was an immigrant. I came here as a young child. I've had to go through paperwork. I've had to stand in long lines. I've learned English, and I've gone through many of the things that other migrants in this country go through. I've lived a large part of my life not a U.S. citizen. And so for me and for many others, this is also very personal. The Constitution should be protecting all of us and is the backbone of the rule of law. This amendment is for due process, for what I believe are true American values, and I urge everyone to support it, and I yield back, Mr. Chairman.
Trump's fantasy of playing dictator just hit a terrifying new chapter. And this next clip, it's a gut punch. Because here, Representative Robert Garcia lays out a story so outrageous, it sounds like something ripped from a dystopian novel. But nope, this is Trump's America we're talking about. This isn't about border security or tough on crime. This is about a gay immigrant designer, Andrea Hernandez, who was literally deported without a single shred of evidence because of a tattoo, a crown tattoo. Why? Because his community celebrates a festival called King's Day. That's it. Not a gang sign, not a crime, just culture. And even after passing a credible fear interview, even after showing up to a government scheduled appointment like he was supposed to, he was snatched up and sent to a foreign prison where no one has heard from him in weeks. Let that sink in. The government told him to show up. He did. They deported him anyway. This isn't just a mistake. This is what happens when you give unchecked power to a man who sees the Constitution as optional. Trump isn't just targeting immigrants. He's targeting citizens, due process, and basic human decency. And Garcia, he's not just testifying, he's ringing the damn alarm.
Round them all up, ship them to jail. Like, that's like some things that you say when you're not thinking things through. Like, what do you do about all the criminals? Take them all, fucking send them to El Salvador.
Yeah.
What about due process? No, that. Well, here's the problem with that. What if you are an enemy of, let's not say any current president. Let's pretend we got a new president, totally new guy in 2028. And this is a common practice now of just rounding up gang members with no due process and shipping them to El Salvador. You're a gang member. No, I'm not. Prove it. What? I got to go to court. No,
Yeah.
no due process.
That's
Right?
dangerous, Joe.
That's dangerous.
dangerous.
That's dangerous. That's dangerous. We got to be careful that we don't become monsters while we're fighting monsters. And I think due process exists for a reason, and the reason is it is horrific for someone to be accused of something they didn't do, be imprisoned for crimes they didn't commit, and then live in a cell, live in a cage with a bunch of
People who did commit.
Here it is, Benjamin Franklin. It's better 100 guilty persons should escape than one innocent person should suffer. That is wisdom
Yeah.
that has survived hundreds of years. It's incredibly accurate, and it is the foundation of freedom.
When Joe Rogan, yes, that Joe Rogan, is suddenly the voice of reason in a conversation about Trump's deportation scheme, you know we've officially crossed into America's Got Tyrants territory. In this clip, Rogan absolutely rips apart Trump's fantasy of mass deportation like he's reviewing a washed-up UFC fighter who showed up drunk to the octagon. And his point, dead on. This isn't about crime. It's about crushing constitutional rights under the weight of pure fear-mongering. Trump wants to skip courtrooms, skip trials, and just start shipping people off. No proof, no lawyers, no second chances. Just, you look suspicious, pack your bags, you're El Salvador's problem now. And Rogan nails the nightmare scenario. What happens when this becomes normal? What happens when some future president decides you look like a problem and you have to prove your innocence with no due process? That's not law and order. That's a full-blown police state on steroids. He even quotes Benjamin Franklin, saying it's better for 100 guilty men to go free than one innocent person to suffer. And let's be honest, when Joe Rogan sounds like a founding father and Trump sounds like a Bond villain, we've got a serious problem. This isn't about protecting America, it's about weaponizing fear, and it's the exact kind of authoritarian fantasy Trump has been chasing since day one, and even high congressmen share this opinion.
Agree with Joe Rogan on everything, but I think that's very well said. Due process exists for a reason, so that mistakes don't get made and innocent people don't accidentally get shipped to prison, particularly prison in a foreign country. And let's be clear, this administration is capable of making mistakes. They accidentally fired all the people who guard the nuclear stockpile and then had to rehire them. They put war plans in an unsecured signal chat and invited a reporter in by accident. They put up insane tariffs and then the market tanked and they rolled a bunch of them back. The list goes on and on. They said they were going to cancel the Social Security hotline and then realized that was a mistake and walked that back. This administration is capable of making mistakes, just like anyone's capable of making mistakes. The whole reason we have due process, the whole reason we have courts, is so that people don't get sent to jail on a mistake. That is why Mr. Garcia's amendment is so important. Yes, let's deport criminals, but let's have due process to make sure that the people we're deporting actually are criminals and not innocent people who are being shipped to foreign prisons by accident. I yield back.
Now that was absolutely genius. Playing a Joe Rogan clip in front of Republicans in Congress? That's like holding up a MAGA mirror and saying, this is what even your guys are saying now. And the silence? Deafening. This wasn't just about some legal technicality. No. This congressman exposed how Trump's scheme is a constitutional dumpster fire and a political loser at the same time. Because here's the truth. Democrats shouldn't be scared to call this out. There's been all this hand-wringing inside the party like, oh, maybe we shouldn't bring it up. Maybe it's too divisive. No, this isn't a distraction. This is a slam dunk. This is state-sanctioned cruelty disguised as immigration policy. This is fascism in real time. This is a wannabe strongman trying to intimidate citizens with no warrant, no probable cause, and definitely no shame. And if even Joe Rogan is calling it out, that's not a red flag. That's a neon sign screaming, talk about this. And speaking of bringing the fight straight to MAGA's doorstep, just wait until you you see what Ken Martin, the DNC chair, did live on Fox News this morning, taking a wrecking ball to MAGA media's lies in real time. Let's roll that clip.
The economy that has shrunk, the GDP shrunk in the first quarter. We actually are seeing a very high likelihood that we're headed towards a recession. Now look, Donald Trump made a lot of promises to Americans last year, and this budget that he's bringing forward is actually going to increase prices for most hardworking Americans. The tariffs that he's put on for sure are going to increase prices for the hardworking Americans, that many of them who voted for him. So the reality is that's where we're focused on right now. This budget he's bringing forward, which is going to cut Medicaid, all to give a tax break to the richest people in this country and corporations, and not helping hardworking Americans.
Ken Martin just went on Fox News and delivered what can only be described as a reality check with extra sting, and he did it with a smirk. He laid it out plain and brutal. Trump's economy already shrinking, GDP is down, recession is looming, and the only thing Trump's budget plan seems to grow is the bank accounts of billionaires and corporate donors. And here's the kicker: the very working class voters Trump loves to parade around as his base. They're the ones getting hit the hardest. Higher prices, higher costs, all thanks to Trump's tariffs and cuts. And what's he slashing to make room for those tax breaks? Medicaid. So yes, less healthcare for you, more yachts for them. Martin's message was clear. This isn't a populist plan. It's a con job wrapped in a red tie and sold to voters like snake oil. And now that the consequences are setting in, even MAGA world is starting to feel the burn.
To be clear, and I know people have a lot of concerns, but he told Time Magazine he would actually veto anything that came before him that was a cut to Medicaid. So obviously we're all going to track that because that's a promise made that he has made on numerous occasions. I want to talk about some of the inter-party turmoil you're having to referee as the new chair of the DNC. There's this disagreement that's been very public between sort of the old guard, James Carville, the new progressive voice, and David Hogg. People can have appreciation within the party for both of them, but that has been clear. There's an issue. As to reports that David Hogg is raising money to primary Democrat incumbents, Mr. Carville called it, and I will quote, jackassery of the highest level. Have you talked to the two of them about ironing this out as you try to get a cohesive message moving forward?
I have talked to both of them, and let me just say this. We're a big tent party, right? We have a lot of different voices for sure. I like David Hogg a lot. I think he's an amazing young leader. But for me, this has always been about making sure that no party boss ever puts its thumb on the scale. In our party primary process, we should stay out. Our job is to be the referee, to call the balls and strikes, to make sure that we actually have a fair and level playing field so all voices can participate, all people can feel like their candidates they support have an opportunity to compete. No party leader at any level should be putting its thumb on the scale, and it's really important to me. I campaigned on this as I was running for chair. I was the person who brought forward the superdelegate reform in 2017, as well as a neutrality pledge in 2017. It's part of who I am, and so this disagreement right now within the party, it's really not a disagreement. We're going to pass this neutrality pledge because it's a principle that's really important to me. Our party has to be completely neutral. Once the primary voters choose a nominee for us, whether it's presidential or otherwise, we're going to work like hell to support whoever that is, but it's not up to party leaders to choose that nominee.
Ken Martin just made one thing very clear. He's not here to coddle egos. He's here to restore order to a party that still believes in something called democracy. When the Carville versus David Hogg drama came up, Martin didn't choose a side. He took a stand. He reminded everyone the Democratic Party is a big tent, and that means no secret deals, no party bosses tipping the scale, and absolutely no political coronations. Whether it's the old school strategists or the next gen progressives, his message was loud and simple. The process must be fair, neutral, and transparent, and he brought the receipts. This is the same guy who pushed through the superdelegate reforms in 2017 and made the neutrality pledge a cornerstone of his platform. Because in a world where Donald Trump wants to run America like some kind of banana republic, it's honestly refreshing to see someone who isn't just talking about democracy, he's out here actually defending it.
Okay, I want to talk about this. Ashley Etienne, who used to run an anti-Trump sort of war room for Speaker Pelosi, says they were very effective, and she's worried that Democrats aren't kind of following their policies or some of the ways that the speaker got things done. She said this week that either you or Chuck Schumer or Hakeem Jeffries have to take the reins. She said, take the power and say, here is where we're going. She says you haven't done that. Is she wrong?
Well, let me just say this. I mean, there's lots of people with lots of different ideas out there. I'm not here to win the argument. I'm here to win elections. And that's what I'm fiercely focused on right now, is building the infrastructure to do that. Look, we've had 100 town halls in over 45 states just in the last 6 weeks alone because Republicans have refused to listen to their constituents, right? And if they're not going to do their jobs, we'll do it for them. I think the reason they don't want town halls is because of all the pain and the anguish that's being inflicted upon the American people. They don't want people to see that. We're going to make damn well sure that Americans see what exactly is happening to thousands and hundreds of thousands of people's lives throughout this country. And so, no, we're fighting back. Our party, while we're very diverse, of course, our party is unified in making sure that we stand up and deliver on the promises that we've made to the American people. Now, look, I've said this multiple times. We can't just resist Donald Trump. Sure, we have to do that. But we also have to give people in this country a sense of who we are, what we're fighting for, and why. And that means we give them the alternative. We give them a sense of what we would do if we're put back in power. And we're doing both.
Ken Martin just sent a message to every Democrat sitting on the sidelines. This is not the time to stay quiet. This is the time to show up, speak loudly, and go straight into MAGA territory. Not to argue, but to dominate. He's not here to be a pundit. He's here to win elections. And that means town halls in 45+ states, not hiding behind cable news segments. It means confronting the GOP's failures face to face, exposing the damage they've caused, and doing it with confidence, clarity, and a clear plan for what Democrats will do next. And let's be honest, we need more of this energy. More Democrats like Pete Buttigieg marching into right-wing echo chambers and wrecking shop with facts, values, and vision. If we could clone Pete, we would. But until that tech drops, we need more bold voices stepping up now. And yes, Ken Martin did it on Fox, and we're gonna keep doing it right here. And speaking of right-wing spaces, you are not going to believe what happened. Click here to see the next drama.